Hello everybody and welcome to beautiful Hall 1 here at King's Place in London, administrative HQ of London Sinfonietta, who warmly welcome you to today's episode of World Premiere Wednesday, part of the ensemble's banging series of lockdown live events brought to you from the ensemble's world-class players. Now, Sinfonietta have very generously arranged that today there's going to be a full eclipse of a full super flower blood moon just for the event. Isn't that nice of them? And combined with this cosmic transformational energy, here in the UK, spirits are lifting quite literally, as we're now officially allowed to go to pubs, restaurants, we're allowed to hug each other. A little bit of mixed feelings about that, apparently. And most excitingly of all, concert venues and performance venues are starting to open their doors to live audiences. Yes, people, you will be able to come and see in person a Sinfonietta concert very soon. More on that later. But in the meantime, today you are going to be treated to brand new music for solo trombone. Don't you love it that we live in a universe where a sentence like that is still viable? Anyway, Naomi Pinnock, composer, she's here right beside me on the screen. She's written a piece for trombone superstar legend Byron Fulcher, who is very much here, even though I think he's off shot right now. And both of them are going to be chatting about the music in just a moment. But before that, if you haven't clocked it already, for you lot online, there is a live chat window and you are warmly invited to send us in your comments and questions, preferably constructive throughout the show. And there is going to be an official Q&A moment after you've heard each piece, 2 pieces today, where you can put your questions to our performer and composer about the music that you've just heard. London Sinfonietta, as always, extends its heartfelt thanks to the Arts Council for underpinning so much of what it does, and to the trusts, sponsors and individuals that make the ensemble's work possible, especially during this still very difficult time. And in that light, the ensemble is still seeking support and suggests that if you've been enjoying these live stream events, perhaps you could consider donating. The price of whatever you can afford could be a soya skinny latte, price of a lunchtime concert ticket, or perhaps a year's retreat in a 7-star luxury spa hotel somewhere in the Seychelles. Wouldn't that be nice? So last bit of pre-show admin. Oh yeah, if you want to do a donation, pop along to the Sinfonietta's website, www.londonsinfonietta.org.uk. There's a load of very, very cool stuff on there. Interviews, performances, chats, information on schemes for the ensemble, things that you can get involved in. It's a fantastic website, podcasts, you name it. And if you haven't done already, share the love, hit a like, hit a subscribe. Now, before I start talking to our wonderful composer and performers, I just want to say about Naomi that her music has been described as delicate and curious, exquisitely crafted, strangely compelling, fragile, ethereal, and often teetering on the edge of silence. And last year, her music bagged her a coveted RPS prize in the extremely competitive chamber scale composition. Naomi Pinnock, welcome to the show. It's absolutely lovely to have you here. Well, where are you today? Where are you speaking from?
I'm speaking from a small town called Cleckheaton in West Yorkshire. It's near Huddersfield. And yeah, I'm actually at my parents' at the moment. So
you're in transition between locations right now, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, sort of unfortunately, I kind of timed my move from Germany, where I'd been for about 13 years, about a month before lockdown happened, and so this is why I ended up in my childhood home. Yeah.
Well, in a way, I guess it's making reconnections with that fantastic countryside, apart from anything else, right? You must have some spectacular nature out there.
Yeah, it's nice to swap the flatness of Berlin for the hills. around here. Yeah.
Fantastic. And Byron,
Hello.
how fab that you're here in person in an actual hall. I mean, how is this feeling for you after this whole year of lockdown to even just physically be in a hall? How is this?
It's great. Yeah, just trying to do a few things now. We're back to some degree, so it's great to be playing, especially this hall, wonderful hall.
Yeah, this is just acoustically a dream to play in, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It certainly is.
Fantastic. And the green shoots of live performances are starting to come back for you now, right?
Yes, in the next few days, playing to some public audiences again, so it's good.
Yes, it's happening. So I don't want to keep Byron waiting too long before playing Naomi's piece, but just before he does, Naomi, could you give us a quick lowdown on how this piece came into being? The title, Beneath, for starters, with lowercase b. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I mean, I've actually written a little program note, which starts with a quote from a poem by Louise Gluck called Snowdrops, and in it she writes, I did not expect to survive, earth suppressing me. And whilst I was thinking about this piece, I was also thinking about a kind of liminal space of burial and traces left behind by loss. And I took a melody that I'd written for a piece in 2016, Music for Europe. It was for a really high flute solo, and I sort of recaptured and reimagined it for the trombone, and the voice of the trombone is kind of, for me, it's kind of beneath the surface. It's kind of receded, but it's gently pushing up, gradually and gently expanding, and I also think of it as trying to move between worlds.
Wow, a really powerful set of emotions, of states of being, is probably a better way to put it. I think we should hear it first, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. So here to play Naomi Pinnock's Beneath for solo trombone is Byron Fulcher. Was the world premiere of Beneath by Naomi Pinnock, played there with unbelievable precision and control by the amazing Byron Fulcher. Byron, when you look at the score of this piece, it just looks like, nothing to it. That's not the case, right? There you are coming out of a year of lockdown and playing, this takes such finesse and control, right?
It does really. If you look at any part of it, as you say, it looks very simple on the page, and it's sort of not super high, but it goes into sort of a register that's, a little bit up the range. But I looked at that and thought, that's okay, and we chatted about it, and I know that we did some work on it, and then I left it. I think, but it is the business of playing all of it that becomes the issue with control, keeping the control for quite a long time, and a lot of silences as well. And so it has its issues. Yeah, it looks simpler on the page than it perhaps is in the end.
Many congratulations. That was just flawlessly controlled, and there's these beautiful moments of vibrato in a very delicate way.
Yes, Naomi's written obviously the trombone could do this slide vibrato, which is a great effect. And then there's little bits, I put a little bit of lip vibrato in just to colour some notes, but the slide vibrato, Naomi's told me where I should do that on.
Can you just show us, for us non-trombone aficionados? I mean, it's funny because normally one would associate trombone vibrato with a kind of something crude, but actually this is incredibly expressive.
Yeah, actually, yeah, different styles of music over different periods of time. Trombonists would play the vibrato in different ways. So I think that just needs a fairly slow bend of the notes, nothing too exaggerated.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Naomi, many congratulations. How weird was that to hear your piece premiered over Zoom for you?
Yeah, weird. Yeah, obviously it would have been much nicer to be in the space. But I know Byron did an amazing job. Like you say, it's just so poised and controlled, and the phrasing is just, it's wonderful. Yeah.
So this is heartbreaking music. I mean, it's absolutely devastating. I don't know if you lot felt that at home, but this simple iteration of these sevenths, do, ya, and then the inversion, just the falling second, and there is something about those intervals still with a whole history of Western music that still hits us in the gut. I mean, obviously you've deliberately chosen these pitches, and in your music generally I can see that what you love are there's the kind of stasis of pitch fields which gain in power through repetition. That's something obviously you must have consciously brought into the construction of this piece.
I mean, yes, of course. Having taken this melody from the other piece, it still has hallmarks of pieces I've written over the last probably 10 years, I would say. Rotating, sort of oscillating between notes, or kind of oscillating over several notes. I think as composers we're drawn to particular notes, particular intervals, and these just happen to be the ones that I really like.
There's something so intrinsically sad about a falling semitone. It's somehow rooted in our DNA, right? I mean, you go back to Mozart, Lacrimae is always falling. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. Sorry for those of you with perfect pitch, I'm singing way down. But that whole idea of this falling. And you said at the beginning that originally the idea of moving a flute voice into a trombone, now I'm hearing it, I can't imagine it on any other instrument. It's incredibly powerful with a trombone.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously I reimagined it and kind of reconstructed it. Actually, at the beginning, I was thinking of doing it like right down in the lower end of the trombone, and in the end, I opted for the majority of it being in my vocal range anyway, but in sort of a more singable range, I guess.
The effect of it in this range of the trombone, I mean, you said yourself, Byron, this is, it's not impossibly high, but it's just on the sort of edge where you need an extra layer of control, right? And the effect is so powerful because there's something so human and fallible and vulnerable about this range on a trombone. Do you agree, Byron?
Yes, it's an area of the trombone where if you're in good shape, you can float the notes and can get the entries really quiet. It's got a bit more meaning to it than had it been, say, an octave lower in the middle range. It would have it wouldn't have had the same effect. So you can, especially, we should mention maybe this mute, which
mute, yeah.
cut mute, which the whole piece is cut muted, which gives me just a little bit of advantage. It takes a bit of the directness out of the trombone, but it means that you can just float some of these entries and do the diminuendos to hopefully.
Could you just give us a couple of notes without the mute so that we can just compare the tone? So obviously this has an open resonance, and here it is with the cut mute. Is that the
cut mute? Yeah.
Cut mute, yeah. It's so beautiful. Could you remind us of that bit of the poem that you quoted at the beginning? Because suddenly now in this context, it feels like it really has some punch.
So it's by Louise Gluck. It's from a poem called Snowdrops, and it's just a short excerpt. I did not expect to survive suppressing me.
Was this text, I mean, obviously we're coming out of, we hope we're coming out of the worst of the pandemic in this country at any rate. Was this part of it? Was this strange time that we're in? Has that fueled that sense of, or it must contribute to it partly?
I mean, I don't think you cannot be affected by it. Really, it's kind of it's everywhere. And I read this poem. I must have been maybe in January, February, and it was it was at the worst time for people in the UK anyway for the pandemic, and it's a devastating poem actually, and it's she's imagining being a snowdrop and surviving and regenerating, and
the vulnerability of that image, this fragile, beautiful thing just somehow surviving into a cold reality, is a very, very pungent metaphor. I was thinking, it's funny I'm quoting these sort of classical things today, but I was thinking suddenly of how Beethoven chose to write for trombone, that 4-trombone piece. What's it called?
The
Equali.
Yeah.
And I suddenly is making sense to me hearing this colour, because that was written, I think it was even played, okay, I might be getting this wrong, peeps, but wasn't that played even at his own funeral?
Yeah.
And there's something that is just peculiar to this instrument. It's just it's heartbreaking. It's your playing, Byron.
The trombone is associated a lot before Beethoven, the first person to write for trombone in the symphony orchestra, Fifth Symphony. But the trombone is an old instrument actually, and it is associated with a lot of church music before that, and acts of the supernatural and death and all the rest of it. So it does have that connection, yeah.
Wow. Were you thinking consciously like that? Yeah, of course you were.
Yeah.
Well, it's extraordinary. I must have a look and see what you lot at home have been writing on the phone of the tube of you, which is really looking good in these lights. Hang on, we just see John Osborne. Welcome back. It's lovely to see you here, John. Thanks for another opportunity to hear some great music. I'm still hoping to book tickets for some actual Sinfonietta concerts. You can. It's going to happen. I'll tell you at the end of the show. There are going to be real concerts. Robin, hey! Robin, how lovely. Welcome to the show. Fabulous composer. Very beautiful piece, says Robin. Trombone was my first instrument. Wow, another one that you play, Robin. And so it's always great to hear solo music for it. Completely agreed. I have a feeling quite a few trombonists are going to want to take this one up and then be amazed at how hard it is to play like Byron. Naomi, I want to ask you more about your music generally, but I think so that Byron doesn't get too cold, I think we should hear the second piece and then I'll come back to you. So this second piece is by an American composer called Vincent Persichetti. Both of us weren't quite sure whether it should be a Chetty or a Ketty, but we're going to go with Ketty for now, Persichetti. And the title is Parable. Parable. So here it is, Parable by Vincent Persichetti, played by Byron Fulcher. Congratulations, Byron. That was Parable by Vincent Persichetti in that amazing performance. Byron, you're making me fall in love with this instrument. What a beautiful sound. Yeah, I know, I'm coming late to the party. But it is such a beautiful... Now, this is a completely different kind of piece. Although, interestingly, there's a few of similar intervals going on, a few painful tritones. And
starts with a cup mute as well.
Starts with a cup mute, so no accident in pairing them. So is this a really well-known piece in the trombone canon?
Quite well-known, yeah, quite well-known. It comes up as a sort of student piece and gets played in recitals and things like that, yeah.
I mean, it showcases a lot of what the instrument can do, right?
It does, yeah. It's quite sort of vocal. The trombone is often lined with sounding like a voice. I think it's quite like that. I wouldn't be surprised if, I'm not exactly sure, I wouldn't be surprised if this Parable is perhaps played a bit more than some of the others. He wrote about 25 of them, I think. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you lot at home, but this composer, I hadn't come across his music before Byron's introduced me to this piece. Persichetti, and what I know about him is that he was incredibly prolific. It doesn't surprise me that he's written 25 solo, along with, I think there's 9 symphonies, at least 14 pieces for wind band. I mean, it seemed like that was his real milieu, right? He really knows about how to write for wind instruments.
I think mainly wind and brass he wrote for, yeah. But he certainly did write for strings and harps and other things, but a lot of it is wind music, yeah.
And he was a professor at Juilliard, amongst other places, and it seemed like he had this roster of American composers that he taught, including Philip Glass. Can't see any overlay between their aesthetics, but yeah. Have you played any other pieces by him, or is this...
No, that's the first time I've played. I've heard this a lot. The first time I've performed this piece, actually. But he did write a trio for violin, viola and trombone, I think.
Violin, viola and trombone. Now, there's a combo.
Yes, that piece also gets played a little bit, but I would imagine it's the trombonist that asks to play it. I'm not sure if that's true or not. But
there's one thing I read about him which I really like, this little detail, is that he used to like writing music while he was driving. And apparently what he would do is he'd put the manuscript paper on the steering wheel. And I mean, that shows a dangerous level of, you know... Well, it says something about his driving as well as his compositional skills. Naomi, what do you make of that? A million miles away from your rolling Yorkshire bleak beauty. Have you come across his music before?
No, I haven't. No, not at all. Sorry, I'm just kind of like stunned by this.
I know. It's so great. When I read that, it's just... I know, it's the only thing that any of us will remember now. It's just like, wow, how would you do it? But it does show a dangerous facility. I hope you don't do that. Don't do that.
I can't drive, so...
Oh, great. That's one aspect taken away from it. Amazing. Have you ever written for wind ensemble? I mean, have you ever?
No. I've written only for trombone in sort of an ensemble, mixed ensemble or orchestra context. So it was a challenge to come to a solo trombone piece. I'm so glad that I could work with Byron on it. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't get better than Byron. It's
no.
You know, you're very, very lucky. Naomi, I mean, you have studied with some really fab people. Not that composition can ever truly be taught, right? I mean, you always will have your own voice, but I saw you studied with Bert Whistle and with Wolfgang Riem and Brian Elias, and they all three have very different takes on music, and all three know so much about music. I mean, what did you take from Harry to start off with? I'm sure you shared a joint love of... Oh, you've frozen! Can you still hear us? Oh, Zoom crisis! I think that was the Bert Whistle.
Oh, yeah.
You're back. Yeah, tell us about your time with Harry Bert Whistle. Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, go on. Off you go. Even if we can't see you, we can hear you right now.
So he was actually my first proper
Keep going, keep going.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, keep talking. I'll tell you if we can't hear you. We're going into the Zoom seance bit.
Okay, so he was first proper composition. It was great to have him as a first teacher. At the same time, very kind of I didn't really know how to learn how to compose. You know, it was quite an interesting time. But I definitely took a lot from his music.
And did you talk together about Feldman? Because when I look and listen to your music, I just feel very much that, although your music is very different, nevertheless you share that love of these static textures or static pitch textures, and that silence is also really part of what you do. This space, these sonic objects that occupy silence and space feels Feldman-esque to me.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, I've liked Feldman for a long time, but the music that I was writing, I suppose in my early 20s, mid-20s, sounded absolutely nothing like it. But I guess it's kind of, I saw him on the horizon, I guess, in some way, and kind of moved towards that kind of more reduced way of writing gradually.
What's incredible about Feldman, I mean, we think about how long ago that was in a way, you know, this time of Fluxus in the 60s and Cage and all the rest of it. But Morton Feldman's music, it stayed. It's the notes are so good. You know, it feels so much more just about that time, about everyone thinks of Feldman as as having different temporal spaces, but actually the notes are so good, and listening to your music is like pitch matters, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, harmony, pitch, I love all of that.
Yeah, and well, of course you will have talked about all these things with all of your teachers, and Wolfgang Riem is very different kind of composer from Birtwistle. What did you take from that enormous brain? He's literally got a huge head, Wolfgang Riem. I'm always... You've worked with him, haven't you, Byron?
I have seen him.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell it's just so full of info. What did you take from learning with him?
Well, he was my teacher when I was about 27, 28, and we just talked a lot about music and about decisions, bigger forms, and he's just a very, very open-minded, curious, generous teacher. Actually, it was always, it still is quite astonishing to me to look at the variety of composers that were in his composition class. The aesthetics were not important. It was about the music. We were just so many different. The variety of compositional voices was amazing.
It's like the great compositional teachers have always had that eclectic class, like Messiaen's class. You could have a Louis Andriessen and a George Benjamin and a whoever, and everyone writing completely different stuff. And there are loads of other examples like that, but how fantastic you had that. And I better go to the YouTube, let's see what you lot are saying. Oh, Robin, back again. You're going to correct me now. Let's just see. I think I'm getting a slapped hand from Robin. Hey, Robin, Persichetti is probably best known over here for his 20th century harmony book. Good call, Robin. You could really hear that level of mastery in his piece. I mean, Byron, it's true, right? This is just exquisitely crafted. And you can tell that he's a really top prof, since we've been talking about composition teachers. Thanks, Robin, for that. You can tell I haven't read that book.
I've never heard of it either. So.
Yeah, but there is, and also the instrumental writing is incredibly fluent in that piece,
It's lovely writing. Yeah, you do hear quite a lot of the sort of harmony, even though it's one, I'm playing one line, that you do hear, I think, quite a lot of sort of implied harmony from the one line.
I mean, this is the difficulty in writing for solo instrument, is that, you know, you're dealing technically with a horizontal line of a melody instrument, but of course you're outlining the vertical spectrum, the harmony, at the same time. And
yeah, no, absolutely. It's writing for solo instrument is one of the hardest things, I think.
yeah, and there's nowhere to hide. Hang on, let me just see if there's any other comments. No, everyone's just blown away by the spaces and beauty of this trombone music today. Well, I think we're sort of coming to the end of today's session, but there's one last question, Naomi, that I wanted to ask you about, is that in that beautiful piece, with all its silence and with all its space, now that I know that you're living in Yorkshire, the nature there must have informed some of the shape of it. Did it consciously, do you think? Was nature informing it? Of course, I've got a very romantic view of the spaciousness of the moors. And
well, I don't want to kind of give you the wrong impression. I'm not in, like, middle of the countryside. I can see hills. I can get out and see sheep and cows very quickly. Yeah, it's not. I'm not in the sort of Yorkshire moors.
Oh no! Well, that smashed that question. I had in my head I was James Herriot, you know, veterinary practice, and there you are, just. It's good sometimes to strip away the romantic idea of the composer out there in the elements. Yeah, yours. Also, this one last thing about your piece, this title, Beneath. You know, it feels of the earth. I am going to return to the earth. It does feel to me like there's this real connection to the earth itself, and particularly through that poetry. And also, I'm just going to ask you about the lowercase b. It's very democratic forming of letters there. How did you come to that? Because it's obviously not to do with texting. There's something, it feels, I don't know, that I sort of sense energetically why it needs to be lowercase beneath.
I'm not sure I've got a very good answer for that, to be honest. It just felt like the right thing.
It feels like, as opposed to beneath, it's beneath.
Yeah.
I don't know, you lot might have some ideas. Okay, so I think, just checking if there's anything else, I think we've come to the end of today's show. So let me just read you about what's coming up next. First of all, I think we should extend a huge congratulations to Naomi for that truly beautiful piece of music, and to Byron Fulcher for that absolutely virtuoso performance. I can tell you people, it is not easy to play to a camera in an empty hall. It really isn't. I'm sure Byron would be the first to agree with that. So huge congratulations to both, and a big thank you to you lot at home. This show means everything, knowing that you are there, our audience. So thank you so much for tuning in. Now, you can join me again. The next world premiere Wednesday is on June the 23rd at the usual midday time. And that episode is going to feature Sinfonietta's principal violinist, Jonathan Morton, the fabulous John. And he's going to be playing a brand new piece by Hannah Kendall, which is apparently going to feature 5 musical boxes. That's going to be interesting. Now, before that, super excitingly, Sinfonietta is collaborating with star tenor Mark Padmore in a live concert here at King's Place, where actual live audience can come and hear a brand new piece by Luke Bedford, which is called In the Voices of the Living, which feels a very apt title under the circumstances. And in that same concert, you can hear beautiful music by Charlotte Bray and Peter Warlock, father of Brian Sewell, art critic, illegitimate son. Don't you love that little bit of info? So you can come to a live concert. How exciting is that? And it's going to be conducted by the ever fabulous Geoffrey Patterson. And if you can't get to the live show, and I know some of you are tuning in from abroad today, join us online on Thursday, the 10th of June at 7 p.m. And there's a very special live-streamed fundraising event hosted by Jamoke Fashola of live chamber music, films and interviews. It's going to be a sparkly chance to have a behind-the-scenes look at the ensemble's work in new music, in schools, in the community, and have a look at some of the fantastic schemes that the ensemble has got cooking to promote new talent, for the future of new music in the UK. Till then, thank you so much for your support, and a warm goodbye from all of us here at King's Place. Be well.